United States Marine Corps guards used tear gas to try to disperse the mob of Islamic students. But that wasn't enough. Hundreds of Iranians finally overran the embassy compound, seizing about 90 people, mostly Americans. The hostages, men and women, were blindfolded and herded into the embassy's basement. No casualties were reported. The Iranians burned a United States flag and denounced the U.S. government, saying they would stay until the U.S. sends the deposed Shah back to Iran.
It's been 35 years since the fall of the U.S. Embassy in Iran. In fact, the building is now a training center used by the Revolutionary Guard. In an interview with NPR released today, the president, when asked about reopening the embassy in Tehran, told the reporter, never say never. Here to talk about Iran, Cuba, and the issues we face here at home, Congressman Mike Kelly, who represents Pennsylvania's 3rd District. Good afternoon, Congressman Kelly. Should the president even consider opening up the embassy in Iran?
Well, first of all, Rick, thanks. It's always good to be on Midpoint, and Newsmax does such a great job. Listen, we have a president right now who seems to be wondering what he should do about almost everything. I was listening in the newscast. He says he's going to use his veto pen more than he did in the past. Well, the truth of the matter is he hasn't had to veto anything because the Senate kept everything coming from his desk. So I think it's kind of interesting he'd lay that out there so late in this year and right before the beginning of a new session starts. But when it comes down to what the president's foreign policy is, please tell me if anybody understands what it is. And as the president speaks, and as he speaks so often but incompletely, I'm not sure that any American knows exactly right now what our stance is and what our position is in the world. We have created a vacuum of leadership because of, I think, what he called his leading from behind aspect of it. I just look at everything that's going on, especially in the Mideast, the turmoil, the lack of a presence of the United States in a strong position creates all these different things that are going on right now where people start to scratch their head and say, so where does the United States stand? Now, he just spoke very well the other day about ending the war in Afghanistan, and we were leaving, and things were better than when we came in to begin with, but he didn't say the work was done. I think he said it was partially done, or at least done in a way that we would accept it. So foreign policy with this president, the one thing that people said he was strong on in the last election, I would really look at that and say, please tell me what part of it he's been strong on, because I haven't seen strength at any level.
I want to go back to that NPR interview, and he actually went on to say that I think these things have to go in steps. He was talking about the possibility of eventually opening this embassy in Tehran. He feels this is the best course to build bridges with longtime adversaries. Do you believe Americans want to put aside these past conflicts, move forward, even if that means making concessions on the international stage?
Well, diplomacy, certainly people have different ideas on it. We've seen a lot of moves in the last couple of weeks that the president has made, whether it be Cuba or any of the stances he's taken. Right now, I would just say that in that part of the world, any kindness is interpreted as weakness. When we look at as a nation that is willing to sit back and let others dictate what our foreign policy should be, they will do that. And that vacuum of leadership that's created because of the United States exiting at the top creates another opportunity for these folks that they will fill those very quickly, and they'll come up with a policy of their own that puts the United States in our interest in the back seat. So I'm very leery of anything the president does right now. I'm watching and trying to figure out long range, what are his policies? I mean, there just doesn't seem to be anything there, Rick, that makes sense for America. Now, we've spent a lot of our wealth and a lot of our young people's lives and doing something that, quite frankly, we look at now and say, why did we do it? What did we accomplish? Why did we decide at this point to now go on a different route? So I'm, as I said earlier, and I'm repeating myself, but please, I don't know of anything that the president does lately that has a long-range effect that looks positive for the United States or that shows some way that we are going to be in a leadership position. I think the rest of the world is looking for us to be in that position. They long for American leadership, and they wonder what happened to the great United States and why have they become so absent.
Well, Congressman Kelly, what can the United States do to be in that leadership position? What can we force Iran to do, or how can we force Iran to be more cooperative on the international stage?
Well, I think certainly sanctions seem to work, but strict sanctions that limit their ability to raise revenue. One of the things that's going on right now in the world, which is having an effect on every single government, is the falling oil prices. It's going to greatly diminish Russia's ability to sway the thinking, the geopolitical consequences in that part of the world where people depend on Russia for natural gas and oil. You look at those states right now, the oil states, with the falling revenues that they're going to have, they're going to be coming up far short of the projections of what they thought they were going to have to work with. So I think that sanctions always work. I don't think we have to use military intervention, but I do think we stick very close to the sanctions that we have in place. We take a look at where the oil markets are going and where those countries really, for the most part, Rick, that's what they rely on for revenue. They don't have other sources of revenue. They don't have the ability to churn revenue from other markets. So look at that and what's happening there. I think the depressed oil
Congressman
price,
Kelly,
as it continues to go forward,
we want to
is gonna be
get
a real
more
problem.
into that in just a moment. We're going to join us for another segment here on Midpoint.